I remember when I first started looking into alternative health and wanting desperately to hide this from anyone who was more conventional in my medical experience. And I'd go into appointments and kind of listen really politely, nod my head, agree with whatever they had to say. And I might ask them some questions, but I'd never think to question them or question their opinions. I just never really wanted to like ruffle any feathers. And the idea of ever telling them that I took food supplements, that I saw a functional medicine doctor, that I thought that meditation and yoga had to do with my good health, I just thought that they would laugh at me. And there was a rare occasion where I would get laughed at. I'd kind of get a little chuckle or a scoff. So I just ended up preferring to keep things to myself. But very recently, I had quite a different experience, and I met someone who was pretty refreshing, as doctors come. And I shared with her what I'd been discovering recently, which was that, meditating regularly and practicing yoga and breathing differently was helping to kind of maintain my health and certain levels in my body. And she was really open to hearing this, to hearing what I had to say to her. Um, and she wasn't that kind of medical expert that I'd put on a pedestal. And I think it's such a habit for we as patients to see someone else as the authority of our healthcare. And the paradox for me is that I had, at this point, come out of probably 6 years of education, being taught to think really critically. So to not take anything for granted when it was put in front of me, to entertain different perspectives, but also to be able to question them, always standing firm in what I believed. And I thought to myself, where's this version of me when I need her? When I went away and reflected on this appointment, a few kind of fundamental truths really landed for me. And what I realised is that all health practitioners, anyone who works in the field of health, at whichever end of the spectrum they sit, whether they're, hippie down one end or really conventional down the other, they all have the same goal, which is to help others reach their optimum health using the knowledge and the tools that they have available at that moment. But what stands them apart is exactly that. It's the knowledge and the tools that they have. So they go about helping people with their health in a very, very different way. They have a common mission. They have that common denominator. It's just the way they go about it is very different. And actually, nothing is worse or better or lesser or greater. They're just different things. And I really noticed it when I was speaking to this doctor. It sort of occurred to me, like, she's an expert in her field. She's an expert in her field, but not in all, and definitely not in many. She spent years and years probably studying this particular area of health, and she is very good at it. But as will be the next person in their respective field, and then the next person in theirs. It's about all of these things coming together. Health is not just one thing. It's not one expert in one area. It's being able to appreciate all the different ones. And I think what we're battling with nowadays is a kind of very misinformed hierarchy in health. And it's down to the preconceptions that belong to our culture, to the education that we've received, to the people that we spend our time with. And we bunch all this together into what we call society. So society says that this practitioner is more reliable or more trustworthy because they have a PhD, or this particular practice is more effective because we know that it's based in scientific fact. But the sad reality is that we're letting society dictate what we should do with our health. So we're letting other people's beliefs, or what we think are their beliefs, dictate what we do with our health. And it's actually stopping us from going out there and finding different options and finding that one thing that may be what changes our health. Something else I've noticed about us nowadays is that we seem to see receiving different opinions from experts or whomever as something that's quite like unhelpful and actually uncomfortable, especially within the realm of health. And there are people out there who say don't spend any time with people that they disagree with, or they don't want to be around people who have a different opinion to them. And I actually personally couldn't find this stance more flawed, because from what I've experienced, not only does disagreement open up the doors to learning, the strongest teams and the people who make progress in life are the ones who surround themselves by people who look at things in different ways, who approach problems with very, very different mindsets, and who come up with different solutions to the same problem. What it doesn't mean is draining yourself of energy by trying to find them the whole time, but being open to what each person has to add, and knowing that, you as a patient or a client can take whatever works for you and then leave the rest. When I began to see that my doctors disagreeing with each other could be a really good thing rather than something really bad and threatening and something that I should avoid, it completely changed my approach to healthcare. Initially, it was difficult because I used to feel confused and unsure who to listen to, who was right, who was wrong, who was more trustworthy. I didn't really know how to handle their contradicting opinions. I think that they were tutting behind my back, thinking that I was wasting their time by not taking what they said as Bible. But it got to a point where I realised it doesn't have to be either or. It can be both, or it can be many different things, whatever feels right for me in the moment. Because everything in this world ultimately does have a time and a place. And while, yes, there's absolutely something to be said for, not dabbling and dipping your toes in different water every 5 seconds, because ultimately, your commitment is what you get back. What you put in is what you get back. What I truly believe is that when it comes to solving a problem, your health, for example, many minds are always better than one at finding a solution. And health just isn't black and white. And being curious, I think, helps us to stay open to asking questions and not taking what we're given as granted, kind of without discernment. And similarly, when I allowed the fact that my doctors were disagreeing with each other to be a good thing and not a bad one, it just changed everything. Because ultimately, who wouldn't want a range of different knowledge and different tools at their disposal? Surely that's going to take us further.